fiercely pursuing accountability on policy and implementation. It's time for another djelf7 candidate interview.
Yo, what's up? Check it out, it's your boy djelf7. As you know, I've interviewed many candidates, and I have a candidate today. I'm quite excited because I've been bumping into him in my public housing advocacy, so that's super cool. But I'm gonna let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Wilfredo Lopez. My friends call me Will, so after this interview today, all of you feel free to call me Will because we'll all be friends. I'm a candidate for the 68th Assembly District, which is in East Harlem. It covers from East 91st Street in Yorkville all the way up to 130th from 1st Avenue to 5th. And the election's coming up in June 28th of this month, so we're right in crunch time. So I'm really excited to be here talking to all of you today.
Okay, so what's your background in the whole, or what made you decide to run?
Yeah, so I mean, my background is I grew up in Puerto Rico, which is the ancestral home to a lot of us here who live in East Harlem. I've been an attorney, I've been an advocate, I've been working in this community for many years. And what made me run is just I'm sick and tired of the same problems perpetuating over and over again and not being addressed. So I'm really looking forward to, using all of the skills and all of the, things that I've learned throughout the years to start addressing a lot of these problems, such as truly affordable housing, the lack of universal health care, the lack of quality education that many of our students and children are facing, and public safety. All these things are interrelated, and I hope to, work with the community to address these problems effectively.
Okay, so out of it's cool that I've seen you stand for some cool policies, right? And for people in public housing, I appreciate that, right? Just kind of getting to know you. I looked at your platform; it looks pretty cool, actually. It seems generally progressive in nature. So I'm going to ask you, but what are you, right? People say whatever, right? But what have you proved? Like, what are you most proud of accomplishing that's relevant towards leadership?
Yeah, so for the last 4.5 years, I worked at the New York City Council. I was a legislative director, and my job was essentially to draft laws and also get them passed. So I had to learn how to legislate and how to work with, other people who maybe didn't have the same point of view or maybe had different ideas. So you have to be a really good consensus builder. In my tenure there, I managed to write and pass 20 pieces of city legislation, which is a lot for a short term, considering the fact that I wasn't working for someone who was the most popular or the a leader in the city council. So that meant that I had to do a lot of legwork to get a lot of these laws passed. The one I'm most proud of that affects folks not only in public housing but across New York City is I wrote the law that bans the use of toxic pesticides in city parks. And for a lot of people, they're like, oh, what is that? I don't care. What we found is that communities of color, specifically black and brown communities, were getting sprayed with pesticides 10 times more than white neighborhoods. So if you just take East Harlem, for example, we're right next to the Upper East Side. The parks in the Upper East Side were getting sprayed once a year, whereas the parks in East Harlem were getting sprayed up to 10 times every single year. And the stuff that they were using, it causes cancer. It's the same stuff that's in Roundup. There have been lawsuits over this that have paid out hundreds of millions of dollars.
I've seen the effects of the guy who got exposed to it. The rashes all over his body for life. That's
Dwayne Johnson. His name's Dwayne Johnson. Not to be confused.
I think he died actually.
But yeah, he developed a very rare melanoma and lymphoma just from being a worker out in California with this stuff. So I was able to pass that. We were also able to, pass one of the most wide-ranging piece of legislation, which was retirement security for all. Which is, if you're a New York City worker, it doesn't matter if you work for the city, if you work for a private institution. If where you work doesn't offer you any sort of retirement, the city will now have retirement accounts for everybody, which you can pay into, and this same system works out in Oregon. They're the first in the nation to do it. So we took that system and we adapted it to New York City. So this is going to help a lot of restaurant workers, a lot of delivery workers, people who typically work and don't have any sort of retirement security, they can now buy into it, and the city would manage it the same way as they manage the city pension fund, which is one of the best managed funds in the country. So you have the same experts, doing the same type of analysis and managing that money. And that was something that it took us almost 4 years of fighting and advocating in order to do it. So when I say I have legislative experience, that's what I mean. When I talk about things that I've been able to do, personally, I'm also a labor organizer.
That was fucking incredible. That's one of the best answers we had on the show, and thank you for that. Appreciate you for real. That was cool as hell. Appreciate that.
But what I was gonna say is I'm also a labor organizer. I was one of the founders of the City Council Union. So I was working at the City Council, and I saw that there were a lot of people being underpaid, overworked, and a lot of my colleagues were facing harassment, whether it be verbal, in some cases even sexual harassment. There was a council member named Andy King who got voted out of the council because of, a lot of the issues that he was having, including sexual harassment of employees. So we banded together. There were 5 of us. I was one of the 5, and we had a fight against the City Council Speaker and against about 25 other council members who did not want this. But we were able to, succeed, and we founded the Association of Legislative Employees, which is currently the largest independent municipal labor union in the country. So, when I put my mind to something, I like to get it done. I hate.
That's amazing. I love it.
Not finishing projects. So,
Yeah.
when I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
All right, nice, man. Beast mode, hell yeah. All right, so like that. That was fucking excellent. Okay, so now let's move on to some people. They come now. The thing is that when you look at this whole activism game, right? There's not a lot that gets covered or passed, right? Like when you heard about the Democrats taking over in Nevada, right? But you don't hear about that happening in New York, right? Like they don't report it until after it happens. There's no help, right? Until you don't need the help. Do you come from a certain school of thought, or how do you develop or is it just basically you came up on your own, right? What's your philosophy in terms of governance?
Yeah, I don't consider myself to be an ideologue. I'm not, I don't consider myself one thing or another because I look for the right thing. I'm a logical person. I like to do my study and research, and there's some things that some policies where a lot of people on the progressive left will be like, oh, this is a great idea, let's run with it. And then, you look into it and you read it and you do the study and you're like, wait, there's probably a better way to do this. One great example was the NYCHA Trust. It passed last week with a lot of, progressive left support. And the most common reason given is that, oh, this is the best model we have found in order to pay the $40 billion in capital needs that NYCHA has across the city. But, even though I consider myself to be, progressive, I looked at it and I'm like, this is a dangerous policy because we're not looking at the fiscal ramifications of this. The fact that these buildings can default, the fact that the city doesn't have to step in if they don't want to. So those are areas where, I don't like to lock myself into one view or another. I am the kind of person who likes to do my own research. That came about not only from my legal background, but just my natural curiosity. I don't accept, if someone says, X is X, I like to find that out and do the work myself, because a lot of times people who don't do the research themselves just repeat something else they heard, and a lot of times what they hear is wrong.
Hell yeah, yo, I know all about that. Word up. God bless, for real. Oh my God.
You got to do the work.
Hallelujah, man. Hallelujah. Thank God. Thank God someone gets it, yeah? Thank God. A lot of candidates are like that too, but you stand out, bro. You stand out. Hell yeah.
I appreciate that.
Anyways,
it's hard.
Yeah.
The easiest thing in the world is to just go with the flow. I understand that, a lot of the ways I do things is not considered,
Look, they can't know everything, right? But you're excellent. Yeah. I appreciate you, yeah? Let me ask. Now, the thing is that, look, I'm going to get to my partner's questions, and these are really positional questions.
Yeah.
Just because I like to put my partners first. But you did a great job introducing yourself, okay? So let's, so if I have four of my partner's questions. I ask you general questions. So the first one's going to be, do you support Assange, the freedom of Assange?
I'm sorry, the freedom of what?
Assange, Julian Assange. He's involved with WikiLeaks.
Julian Assange.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a little concerned with how his civil rights have been attacked, not only from the standpoint of the British government, the UK, but also a lot of the involvement that the U.S. government has had. So I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the things he did, but I do believe that as a human and as someone who deserves his civil rights, he should not be held in the manner he's being held. He's being
that.
essentially kept captive without any charges. So I'm against that 100%.
Yeah, appreciate that. And just so you know, just a little side ad, appreciate that. The reason why they didn't extradite him the first time to the United States was because the British court said our ally said that our prisons were too inhumane. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's incredible. Okay. The second question is going to be, do you support UBI?
So I am a fan of UBI, Universal Basic Income. I was actually talking with a few of the proponents of UBI, locally. James Felton Keith. I don't know if you've ever.
I do know him.
So he and I had a really good conversation around this, and
He could be a good ally.
Yeah, and we both came to the same agreement that in a lot of ways we need to market it better when we're talking about UBI, and not call it so much universal basic income, but livable income. We should have the ability. We pay into the system, we work and provide into the economic system. There should be a safety net, for everyone to draw upon. Especially those of us who need it the most.
Appreciate it.
I can tell you right now, UBI, it could be transformative to my community, to East Harlem.
One thing that I like about you though is that honestly, because a lot of people, like you said before, will support an idea, but the implementation, and you've been a part of that, is key. So UBI could be good or bad, but someone with experience and someone who talks about the things that you do, like, I'm just way more confident than someone who just, you've seen it before, the blind-eyed people who just, have no concern. It's just, this is what's hot now, this is what I'm going to talk about, that's all I have to say. No, get out of here, yeah? Anyway, sorry, yeah? But excellent answer on the UBI. The next question, I just want to cover these four, simply. So the next one's going to be, okay, we're going to take a look at the disability community. And the thing is that right now, people with disabilities are allowed to be paid sub-minimum wage. Now, if you look at minimum wage, it's kind of like a subsistence wage, barely making it, right? Would you support at least minimum wage for people with disabilities? Maybe we could do, if it's a productivity issue, maybe we could supplement with maybe state subsidies or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no. All work has dignity, and that is the most basic truth that exists, that all labor has dignity and everyone should be compensated for their labor. So when I talk about the folks who are differently abled or disabled in the community, they absolutely deserve to make a livable wage. Right now, minimum wage is too low. $15 an hour is very. It's almost impossible to, provide for yourself and a family on $15 an hour. Never mind, someone who is differently abled, who has probably more expenses due to their disability in comparison. So I do believe that instead of doing subsidies to offset that, I think what's better is if we offer the employers more subsidies in terms of incentives to hire more people who are differently able. Because the reality is, unless they're doing a job that has a physical limitation, there really shouldn't be any lack of productivity. A lot of the work nowadays that is being done is being done computer based or is being done through some other medium. I've worked with people who are differently abled, and they are just as productive as anyone else who is able-bodied, quote unquote, in the same office space. So I absolutely am in favor of that.
Yeah, I do work with people with disabilities a lot, yeah. Just so you know, people with, I do also do tutoring and stuff. And for people that have autism, there's a lady who actually, she's the leading researcher in animal slaughterhouses. But she has autism, and she actually says autism is her special ability in that field.
Is that Temple Grandin?
Something, yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, she's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that lady.
Yeah, I I saw a documentary about her, and I was amazed at the level of involvement that she's had with that entire issue. So
Yeah, autism is a tough one. That's amazingly
yeah.
difficult. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So we're going to the next one is okay. The trans community. Okay. So the thing is that we take a look at people who are trans, and a lot of times they get discriminated at work, and I get it. Not saying I'm for that, but I see it happening. And then they often get poor, often in need of services, and they may end up needing public housing. Now the thing is that we take a look at, let's say for instance, right? This is a hypothetical, made up numbers. Let's say 10% of the people of the homeless population is going to be trans, and they need public housing. Okay, so okay, then we look at the public housing system, we see only 2% are trans. So how would you go about is there a way? Is there something? Is right? There's a question here of quotas, right? Are we using percentages here, right? Some solutions might say put them all in a safe building by themselves. Is that ghettoization? What's your solution for this complex issue?
Well, I'm a big fan of making sure that communities are represented in every aspect. So mutable and immutable characteristics. We're only stronger when we have more cohesion within a community. When it comes to the trans community, I don't view them as being any different from any other members of the community. I honestly think that in a lot of ways, the discrimination against individuals in the trans community leads to the poverty issues, leads to the housing issues. If you eliminated the stigma that they face, if you eliminated the discrimination that they face, you would not see the same levels of poverty and the same levels of need for housing. So I think that issue is a much bigger issue, that we need to address. When it comes to public housing, I don't think we should be worried about quotas. I think we should be worried about making sure that we have more housing available for everyone, which is why I've worked on developing a plan to not only eliminate homelessness but also increase the amount of housing stock that we have available that is truly affordable to those who live in communities like East Harlem. When it comes to the broader issues that the trans community is facing, I look to the leaders in those communities. I'm friends with many of the leaders in that community. Elisa Crespo, who is she's the executive director of the New Pride Agenda. She was a former intern of mine. She and I worked together. I helped her, when she was still.
Hey, you know
in
what?
school.
I've interviewed over 50 candidates and asked them this very question, and you're in the top tier, so you're doing great, man. You're killing it, yeah. Great job, no doubt. You know what I mean? You're killing it. You're killing it, bro. You're destroying this whole. You're doing a great job, man. Okay.
I appreciate
really,
it.
Really, you're a superstar right here so far.
But,
You check all my interviews, right? Yeah. Look, I don't just say this to everybody. You know what I mean? You're doing great right here. Okay,
No,
so
I appreciate that. But yeah, when it comes to that issue, I absolutely do feel that there is more to be done.
appreciate it. You know what I mean? So, and yeah, I appreciate the depth of that answer question, right? Because I got a lot of people on a lot of different days, and I've thought about it differently. So that's, I agree with that answer, 100%. Yeah, I've got too many cans about this. Yeah, activists as well. Okay, let's go to the now. Let's go to some of the general stuff. Okay, like so people right now they hear about schools and stuff. You know what I mean? And I know that you guys are kind of like involved in some charter school stuff. You guys are so busy. Yeah, yeah. So and there's other issues too, but what's your idea about schools and education reform in general?
Yeah, our public school system is incredibly underfunded, and if you look at people, in East Harlem, we're owed over $68 million in back funding from the state. This is money that the state has owed us since 2003, and it just keeps compounding more and more every year. So when we look at why our public school students are struggling, it's because they don't have the resources. On top of that, we're asking teachers to do too much. If you're a public school teacher, you're expected not only to be a teacher, you're a guidance counselor, you're a mental health professional. You're also sometimes even a parent to a lot of these kids because they may not have the same parental structure that most of us enjoy at home. So we're asking these teachers to do a lot with less and less resources every year. When it comes to the charter schools, for a lot of students and a lot of parents, that's the choice that they have is between choosing a failing school or choosing a school that is going to give their kids a leg up. or at least give them a chance for a better education. My parents made the choice to send me to parochial school, and the reason why was because the local public school where I grew up were terrible, both in Puerto Rico and here. So they made the choice to send me to parochial school, even though they could barely afford to, because that was the only choice that they saw to get me the best education possible. I would love to have a system where we wouldn't need anything other than public schools. But in order to do that, we need a real investment. I'm talking about we need to not only pay back that $68 million that we're owed here in East Harlem, but bring up school funding up to the levels that we need. And that's going to take billions of dollars. So if that means shifting money or even creating bigger investment, helping out, creating more home ownership opportunities so we can recoup some of that property tax revenue and invest it in schools. That's what they do in the suburbs. That's the only way that we can really get schools up to par.
Actually, just so you know, I do a lot of third-party independent work, and that's cool. Whatever. Green Party, blah blah. They're like 150,000 nationally, maybe Libertarian, maybe 200,000 nationally. But if you look at like my partner, who's has a show on the West Coast, her name's Lisa. She's part of a group called Color of Change. That's a Black women's interest group. 8 million members, growing larger. They're really a great organization to tap into. I know right now they're working on student debt reform. I think they're trying to forgive the interest.
Yeah.
Or something like that. What's your take on that whole student debt issue thing?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm part of that group. I am currently $150,000 in student debt, and that's just from law school. And if I add my wife's social work master's degree, that puts another 150 grand. So we're 300 grand in the hole.
Wow.
Just standing here talking to you. So when I talk about student loan forgiveness, that's not an ad. That's something we must do. The reality is that the reason why, I had to choose to do the work that I did right out of law school, which was going to work in the public interest sector, and not go and take a job that could pay me more, is because I had to think about those student loan payments. And I was, trying to do whatever I could to not only do what was beneficial for me as a human being. I need to feel good about the work I'm doing, but I also have to be mindful. And unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues couldn't make that choice. They went after the money because they had that yoke over their neck of student loans. So if we got rid of student loans, in reality, this isn't a handout. People have earned this. And the reality is that when our parents went to school, or when our grandparents in some cases went to school, schools didn't cost what they cost. The debt wasn't as high. We have literally bankrupted future generations with student loans.
I'm telling I'm actually been telling students. I actually contacted every student government here in New York City. Only one from John Jay responded. A lot of these student groups are actually controlled by Office of Student Services. I know it sounds paranoid, whatever, right? I know Sunrise actually sometimes they talk and stuff.
Yeah.
That's nice. But the thing is that really the outrageous tuition price that these students are paying is criminal. It's a scam, and it's right, and we're destroying this new generation. And who bought the Kips Bay apartments when I went for that Millennial Cello? It's actually, it's something Pace, right? Cornell Pace.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these publicly funded schools that are taking public money, why are they buying the projects? What does that have, right? What is this? They actually buy a lot of this property because they're no longer educational institutions. They're doing a poor job, right? They're actually financial institutions bankrupting our children to, for their for-profit, owners.
Yeah, in Manhattan, two of the largest landlords in Manhattan are Columbia University and New York University. And full disclosure, my wife graduated from NYU. She has a lot of love for NYU, but she also recognizes that, they own a big chunk of, what used to be Greenwich Village.
Why?
They've gentrified.
What does that have to do with education? What does that have to do with education?
Nothing at all. It's a great endowment.
We should just take it back.
Yeah.
We should just take it back. Anyways.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of NYU students who would agree with you.
Hey, you know what? Actually, I think there's, just want to shout out another local New York guy. I hope he could support your campaign, right? Yeah, I don't know if you're Louis Rossman.
I haven't. Where's he running?
Oh my God. Yo, he's this guy from the East Village. He actually has a small Apple, he repairs different like cell phones and stuff, and he's got 1.7 million subscribers. I didn't really know yet. So the thing is that he just does board repair, and he's actually does something called right to repair. So
Yeah.
like the thing is that he's actually been testifying like on the in the Midwest, right, for those farmers, right, with the John Deere stuff.
Yep.
He's really incredible, and he does have some feelings about it, but he's not to get. He doesn't really do a lot of promotion of candidates and stuff, but he actually did some stuff with Larry Sharp, so that was cool. He's really
That's
down.
awesome.
Someone who's really serious about like, making the change happen. And honestly, right now, they got it through the I think the assembly. So I think they're trying to get it through the Senate or vice versa. So the right to repair bill actually is like on the table and it's passed halfway through. So you could look into that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that was a huge win for the EU. They passed that a few years ago.
But I forgot to ask. So you do support right to repair, though, right? That's
Absolutely.
Okay,
So
thank you. Thank you.
full disclosure, I used to work for Best Buy. That was my first job, and I was in the Geek Squad. I was a Geek Squad supervisor and Geek Squad manager. Trust me, right to repair is necessary. We're creating way too much techno trash by not allowing people to have the necessary resources available to them to make the repairs. Like honestly, you should just be able to go online and find the schematics you need to do any repair you need. And unless you're in the know, you don't know. So I absolutely agree that right to repair is something we absolutely need in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. So, okay, so with that education reforms, that was a good position on that. Now let's go to another look. People have this the vaccine mandate, the masks, this whole COVID thing. What's your take on just the whole situation?
Well, I am an ardent pro-vaccine person. I'm triple vaxxed, and I do think that it's going to be the best way to get back to a sense of normality. I mean, right now we're enjoying this kind of lull where cases, spiked and now have dropped, and we're able to go around New York City, and it feels kind of like it did pre-pandemic. And the only reason why that is because we've done a fairly decent job in ensuring that people are getting vaccinated. In terms of the mandates, it's a little problematic. I believe the government has the right to create a mandate for public institutions, for their workers, for public spaces. When we start treading into mandates for private institutions, we run into a lot of issues. And I'm just talking as a lawyer right there, outside of anything else. The government really doesn't have, I believe, the strength, unless it's in a true medical emergency, to really mandate private industries to do that. But I do believe that the private companies and private institutions have a responsibility to do what's right for their workers and have a responsibility to do what's right for the general public if they're public facing. So I think it should be more of a responsibility that they have to take on to do. But in terms of where we're at right now, I think that we're probably not going to see another lockdown like the way we did 2 years ago. I think that COVID is not going to go away anytime soon. I think it'll be something that we start learning how to live with. It'll be a chronic thing that's just around, and we're just going to get better at making sure that we're taking the precautions.
All right.
I think the masks.
What about like reopening? Like any?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that public spaces should be completely reopened. In terms of going back to work, though, this is where we kind of have to start going with the times. There are few jobs that cannot be done from home. Obviously, you can't be a waiter from home, you can't be a construction worker from home, but for like that percentage of people who work in offices, there should be a remote option or a part-time remote option, because the reality is what we learned from the pandemic, the only real positive thing that we learned is that going to work, going into an office 5 days a week for 40 plus hours
Doing all that pollution.
is not the only way.
Yeah.
It's not the only way. I think that you will have higher quality of work. I think you'll have greater productivity, and I think you'll have happier employees.
Appreciate that. Okay.
Being able to have some sort of hybrid option or even a full remote option for those that need it.
Actually, I heard that they are also saying that they're forcing mandates to people like who are like in schools and also people who are like in public housing to stay with their. Are you like supporting that, against that?
The school issue, children thrive from working and learning together. And I do think that for a lot of children, they were robbed of 2 years of social interaction, which is going to have repercussions down the road for a lot of these children. I think in that situation, there are better ways to deal with potential infections. I mean, think about it. You and I growing up,
Okay.
when there was a kid who got chicken pox,
Yeah.
they didn't shut down the whole school.
Yeah.
When someone had the flu, they didn't shut down the whole school. I think that there's a better way to do that piece. In terms of public housing, the reality is, we shouldn't be treating public housing residents with any differently than we're dealing with, private housing or Section 8 housing.
Appreciate that.
So there shouldn't be any real impediment to them to be able to live, work, and do whatever they need to do within their complexes.
I agree with that. Hell yeah. Appreciate that. Now we go to criminal justice reform. We just have Black Lives Matter to like people shooting stuff up recently. What's your take on the whole situation?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I'm a former prosecutor. I always tell people that I'm a recovering prosecutor. I spent 2 years working at the Brooklyn DA's office, and the biggest learning piece that I got from there was that the criminal justice system is broken, and it skews more racist than people give it credit for. We are criminalizing poverty. We are criminalizing being black. We're criminalizing being an immigrant. And these are the parts where the system is really failing us as residents and us as citizens, however you want to classify that. When it comes to bail reform, which has been the biggest argument that exists, I think that we're missing the ball there. We did the bail reform in 2019. It was scaled back in 2020. It was scaled back again this year. And we're not seeing any difference in crime statistically from pre-bail reform to post-bail reform. We are seeing an increase in gun crime, but overall the numbers do not support the hypothesis that bail reform has led to higher crime. The gun issue is a completely separate issue. That's more about inflow of guns into our communities, and they're coming in from out of state. So that's a whole separate issue that is being used as a way to fight bail reform. Bail in New York City and New York State has never been about how dangerous someone is. It's always been about their ability to return to court. So if you are a Harvey Weinstein and you have sexually assaulted tens if not hundreds of women and you get arrested, they'll set bail on you, and if you can pay it, you go home. But if you're someone who jumped a turnstile and they set bail on you and you don't have $1 to your name, you're going to Rikers Island. That's criminalizing poverty, and that creates bigger issues. I think we need to shift the focus away from talking about bail, because the biggest thing that people say is, well, what about the guy who's been arrested 27 times and is out on the street 2 hours later? Well, there's a reason he's been arrested 27 times. He probably has 0 convictions. And the reason why is because our speedy trial system is broken. We are not able to hold people accountable by convicting them of crimes that they're guilty of. I'm not saying that we need to, bring the hammer down, but right now the system is so slow that in a lot of cases, the prosecutors, the judge have to dismiss the cases that matter. Or you have situations where if you're a victim of a crime, right now you're in the moment, you're ready to testify, but it doesn't come up to trial for 3 years. By then, do you still care? It depends on how serious the issue is, which is why we have a higher conviction rate on aggravated assault, on homicides, on really serious felonies, but not so much on the lower end stuff, which is still important. Like, there are reasons why people continue to do the same crime over and over again. Is because they get away with it. So we need to reform the way we look at speedy trial. I have a plan for this that I've been trying to work through and talk to people who are in the criminal legal system, who are still working with it, activists, and to work on a way to make it more efficient. Because if we are able to eliminate the crimes that just take up a lot of space in our criminal justice system, the paper pushing cases, the cases that don't matter, we can then focus on the cases that do matter and get real results there and actually affect the crime rate, actually lead to positive results, not only for the community, for our victims, but ultimately also those defendants who are still part of our community.
You know what? Been an activist for a long time, and one of the real issues that I see is really, really the issue that I see that affects all the parties and all the organizations is corruption that really prevents, anything. So a lot of candidates say they're the ones to fix the system, all this other stuff, right? Yeah, and then. So I'm going to ask you, are you ready to call anybody out on this show right now? Is there anything, right? Do you know of any corruption going on right now? People say I'm the one who's going to stop it, right? Well, are you that type of person? You ready to call anybody? Go ahead.
I'm not afraid to call someone out when I see them doing something wrong. I will say that, if I'm just looking at this race on its own, there are some shady stuff happening in this race. There are, right now what we can look at in terms of campaign finance, where people are getting their money, where people are putting their money. We're all mandated to file, periodic filings showing who's donated to our campaign, how much, and, if we have any expenditures, things like that. We are mandated to do it. It is a state law. It is a regulation, but it's unenforced. No one enforces it, which is why it's so difficult. So when I look at, some of the people who are running this race, say, for example, one of my opponents, John Ruiz Miranda, has not filed a financial statement yet for this race. Here we are in June, 23 days from the election, and we don't know how much money he has or where that money's coming from or, if he's spending any money on this race. That, to me, do we call it corruption? Maybe not. Maybe we call it, a lapse of judgment, or maybe we call it
lack of transparency.
Lack of transparency. But the reality is that, we're all held to a higher standard. We have to be. We want to be public, we want to be public officials. And if you're going to be a public official, then guess what? Everything has to be public. I'm fully in favor of financial disclosures being made to the public before someone gets elected. We have to file them. I had to file a 20-page form when I made my name on the ballot, but it's still not, publicly available. It should be. You should know. On here,
there's a lot of shenanigans going on. Yeah.
That's
cool.
On here just today, I told you that I'm like over $300,000 in student loan debt between me and my wife. I'm like, you should know that, because the reality is, the more you know about someone, especially their finances, the better you're going to be able to understand where they're coming from. You're going to be able to understand who they're beholden to. If I'm going around taking, all the PBA money, then I might be beholden to the cops. If I'm going around, accepting, hundreds of thousands of dollars from the real estate community, maybe I'm beholden to the real estate community. The reality is, I want to be beholden to the people of the 68th Assembly District. And that's really the only people that I should be beholden to, because ultimately they control the power. I always tell folks this all the time. I'm not looking for power, because being an elected official, you don't have any power. All you're given is the power that people choose to lend you. You're using the people's power of the people.
But the fakes and the whack are going to try to get the power. And if you don't jump in, then they're going to do it, and they're going to mess it all up.
Yeah, always. So am I afraid of calling people out? No, I'm not.
Good. Appreciate
that. I'm also not going to defame someone. I always believe in only saying the truth. And I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm going to get defamed. If you have a question about it,
appreciate that.
Go look at the filings.
Just want to make sure, because some people, when you could watch the interviews, you see the deer in the headlights look. You see that now. Nah, I ain't doing that, and you can see it. It's all good. But I appreciate you, man. Yeah, we want to know that we can believe in you, and you're gonna have that integrity. So I think that's an important question. So I think that's really, I could ask you about environment and things like that, but we're gonna say that for other stuff, because I'm sure that we're gonna be doing more stuff together. I guarantee it. Yeah, I'm gonna be watching this guy. It's super exciting. Hey, before I go though, can you share with my audience? You have the website. You have how can people follow your stuff? Twitter, what's going on?
Yeah, so I'll make it real easy. So everything, all social media and our website, it's all Lopez for New York. That's LOPEZFORNY. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then our website is www.lopezfornewyork.com. So please check out my platform. It's on the website. Check out the social media because we've been doing a lot of community outreach, a lot of community work. My volunteers, as of today, have knocked on just under 15,000 doors in the last month. We've made over 30,000 phone calls in the last month. So we're out here, we're delivering the message. We are 24 days away from the election. Early voting starts June 18th, and election day is June 28th. So I'm asking for your support. We're really excited. We're in a really good place, and June 29th, we look forward to raising our hand in victory.
Hey, so last question before we go is now that people know where to get in contact with your stuff, what's the next thing coming up? You got something coming next week? Anything this weekend? What's going on?
So for those of you who plan to be on East Harlem this week, Wednesday night, we have our Tequila, Politics, and Cigars. It's a small fundraiser. It's a community fundraiser. We don't. Maybe I'll be there. We never ask people to, if you can't donate, you don't have to. But if you can, hey, we take as little as $5 from folks to support this campaign. But that's happening at La Fonda, which is on 106th Street. So that's going to kick off from 6:30 to about 9 p.m. We're going to have some good food. We're going to have some good people there talking, and spending some time together. The next big thing that's happening after that, the 116th Street Festival is back this year. So you will see me and the team out and about all day next Saturday. That's on 116th Street and 3rd Avenue next Saturday.
Is that Carmen Hernandez thing?
I think she's part of that as well. It's a huge event. I mean, so many people are involved with it.
All right.
But you're going to have 2 different stages. They're going to be hundreds of vendors. It's going to be a really, really good time. So first time it's back in the last 2 years.
I'm going to come back. I'm going to come to that too.
Yeah.
Should be a good time.
It'll be a good time.
Hey, man. You did a great job. Thank you so much. I'm so glad. Thank you for coming by. God bless.
Anytime.
Thank you.
It's a dark day in our nation when high-level authorities will seek to use every method to silence dissent. The truth must be told.
And if you want the truth, you need to check out independent media producers just like myself, djelf7. You should subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notifications when I release a new video.
Truth of these
We are
words
on all
is
the
beyond
major
doubt.
platforms. That includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube. Unfortunately, we have definitely seen that these mainstream outlets will cave to corporate interests, so we encourage you to join our independently moderated communities of Reddit and Discord. We also encourage you to subscribe to us on BitChute and Dailymotion so you can see the content that YouTube doesn't want us to let you see. Hey, now it's time for the most important part of the video. That's right. It's time for us to tell you about the Taking Action Group. Do you need an activist? Or maybe there's no activists around willing to help you with your cause and you need to learn to become an activist. That's exactly why we're here. Every week we get up with people from across the nation, in fact even sometimes internationally, and we develop strategies and a game plan to address the issues that are affecting all of us. Every week myself from New York City and of course my co-host Lisa from Los Angeles provide a coast-to-coast perspective on what's going on in the country. If you want to donate to help out with expenses, travel, equipment, stuff like that, then I definitely appreciate it, and you can hit us off at Venmo or PayPal. Thanks a lot. Hey, by the way, we also have a merch store, so check it out. Oh my goodness, it seems like you've reached the end of the video, so make sure you check out some of our other videos, make sure you subscribe. This is your last chance to do so thanks a lot, and looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please comment below if you have any questions or issues you'd like me to address. And if you're an activist, the time to make things happen is now.